So the people do have a reputation. If you have a reputation, that reputation is cash. A reputation is actually cash, right? Because you can work, yeah. Reputation is cash because you can convert reputation to cash. People can drop money on the table to say, oh, I believe in you. Oh, I need XYZ for a period, and they will drop it. There are certain customers and even consumers that just want just the bare benefit, just good enough. I don't want any pampara, just something basic, and I'm okay.
Toyin, once again, thanks a lot for answering the questions around, customer segmentation. I mean, that's quite instructive to be able to, define, who our customers are and who, we're not going to serve, because I think to a large extent that will help drive some kind of focus, right, and attention, and, help us in serving the people we have chosen to serve in the right way, in the way that really, represent value for all parties, right? And then we have some kind of win-win kind of partnership and relationship with them. Now, I want to step back a little bit to talk about what we often hear around, new startups, right? And if you talk to 1,000 people today that wants to start a business, right, 900 of them will tell you, I had a great idea, I had a brilliant idea, but money. Do you get it? Everything was tidy, everything was ready, tight business, but money. And then by the time I raised the money, something has gone wrong. So I just want to hear from you how you kind of solve the funding problem. Now, was it really solved by funding, or was it something that you explored? You were going out. How did the first set of, I don't know what your model was when you were leaving P&G for the, outsourcing part of the operations back then, right? So I don't know how much you had to invest in terms of either hiring drivers or buying cars or whatever, all those kind of stuff. It would just be good to know how you navigated that curve back then around funding and stuff like that. Or did you get funders, investors, and all of that early? It would be good to hear your thoughts.
Okay. Okay. So funding is very important, no doubt. You need funds. In fact, when you sneeze, it's money. But I think I'm trying to see how to put this. I don't think one should also think that if I don't have, of course, you also need to know how much you need to get started. That's very important. I think that's very basic. What do I even need to get started? So part of what you do in terms of trying to, do anything at all, any founder, is to say, what resources do I need? Of course, what targets do I have? For example, say year 1, year 2, and then to deliver this target, what resources do I need? And it also depends on the kind of business. It depends on the frequency of your receivables, how quickly, when you sell, you get your money immediately. If it's a product now, and you're selling directly to the consumer, the moment you sell, you're collecting the cash, right? So if it's service, maybe is it a 90-day payment term? Is it 60 days? Is it 10 days? Is it 2 days? Is it 1 day? Is it cash on delivery? Stuff like that. So you also have to factor that into knowing how much you need, because you would definitely need a particular base that you can then now build on. So it could be this X amount, and then you can keep rolling over that X amount as long as it keeps coming back, with something on top. So funding is key. So you need to know at least what you will need to get started. So for us, what we did, we've done a lot of bootstrapping, at the company, and it's not the easiest path or route to go, for sure. The truth is, when I look at companies that have done some good raises as well, funding is very important and good and helpful. Funding can help you grow very fast. But what is people don't talk about often is also the fact that it could be a two-edged sword. Funding can make you grow very fast, and funding can also make you die very fast. Yeah. Like I said, it's often not talked about. I mean, the truth is, overall, net is a good thing, no doubt. Because, if you have great intentions, great ideas, great product, great demand, if you have funding, then you can drive scale. So it's logical, And why I said that is because sometimes there's a tendency to be so overly focused on the funding, to think that it's because I don't have the funding that I'm not doing X. So sometimes you've seen companies that got so much money, and then the problem with so much money too is that you don't think enough if you're not careful, because you're being become mental. Thank you. Money becomes the solution. So there's an issue here. What you're thinking of, okay, how much do you need? How much do we need to fix it? So, and that's one way you don't want to go as a company. So when you don't have too much money, when there's a problem, the question you're thinking of, how do we need to fix it? Money is not the first thing you're thinking of. The question is, what is broken and what should be fixed? So money is good. But then I just wanted to just establish that we should not be all too fixated on money. So yeah, we started off and we're still a largely bootstrap company. Of course, we're doing raises. But doing the raises, particularly even from this year, we're coming a bit more out there. And like I usually say, we've done a whole lot of driver that people don't even know about, and I think this year, hopefully we would even talk a bit more about what we've done or what we do, as a company. So yeah, bootstrapping, is a way to go. And I will talk about the things people talk about, because I will talk about them in general terms. But what I want you to know is that a lot of these things I mentioned, we've actually done. I mean, not necessarily we did this, but we've done. One of them is, look, there's something our parents used to say. And let me say, my parents, specifically my mom and my dad, was raised in a very good home with solid foundation, very, very intentional parents with high values. And, one of the things we used to hear growing up is that a good name is better than silver or gold. And that thing it will never be out of fashion. It's still true today. Your biggest currency as a founder is your name, your integrity, your brand, who you are. When you walk into a room and you say you need 10 million, you say you need 1 million, you say you need 100 million, you say you need 1 billion, are there people who will put that money on the table because it's you? Now, that's not to say, because guess what? We'll talk about equity, brand equity. A lot of times when businesses start at the initial phases, the equity of the brand is not different from the equity of the founder, whether we like it or not. For a lot of businesses, there are some that are able to separate it very early, depending also on the kind of product. And so there's a lot of stuff to that. So at the beginning, a lot will be about you. People will even put money in that business, not because it's driver or not because it's whatever company, but because it is you, your name. So, and that's why when they talk about, and I'm trying to make this practical, because people hear things like family and friends, but hey, the reason they say family and friends is because these are people that know you and believe in you. But the question is your name good in public? Like we usually say slang. I just try to, do you have a good reputation? Do people trust you? Do people, do people believe in what you're doing? And I give an example, because I've worked in different places. If I talk to people, there's the integrity, there's the capacity. Oh, Toyin has social capacity. They've seen my work rate, right? Toyin is solid. Now, if it's Toyin, then it will. In fact, some people just think if it's Toyin, then it will work. Those kind of stuff. So the question is,
It's a good place.
a good place to be, yeah. So do you have a reputation? If you have a reputation, that reputation is cash. A reputation is actually cash, right? Because you can work, yeah. Reputation is cash because you can convert reputation to cash. People can drop money on the table to say, oh, I believe in you. Oh, I need XYZ for a period, and they will drop it. So at the beginning, go and look for the funds. But you see, let me quickly say this. You see, all of this is subject to you having something that works. Because it's not enough to go and raise money, whether via debt or via equity. In fact, equity is even the harder one. In fact, both are hard because, who will give you money? Nobody would loan you now. If they don't have a reputation. Already they ask for collateral and stuff like that. Guess what? Your name is a collateral. That's another thing you will find. Yeah, your name itself, you should also build yourself as a person to the point where your name is actually a collateral, where people drop money just because. Let me give an example, very random example. Elon Musk. I think there was something, I'm trying to remember what it was recently. I saw about, I think it was space, right? Space, I can't remember. And he needed to raise some funds and he sent a note. And this is just like, imagine sending like WhatsApp messages to a couple of people who have money. And they just said, they didn't even ask for market research, market validation, all those things we talked about. They just said, okay, what are you trying to do? It's the reputation. Oh, if this guy is saying there's opportunity here, then there's opportunity here. People rolled $1 billion check on the back of just, oh, Elon Musk said that and I put the money in. That is where you need to even get to as an individual, right? So at the beginning, people will bank on you. People should be able to bank on you. I'm trying to do this. You will raise Sometimes your initial investors will be friends or family that I'm trying to raise this. And sometimes it's even debt funding, free of interest. Sometimes it's interest based. But what I'm going to is even when you go and collect money, I think that's where people run into issues. Are you collecting money for a business that will generate a return? And let's be very clear about business. So business is, and that's why I like our mothers and our fathers and some of the when you go to places like Eko, Idumota, those people may not be so as educated as we are, but they understand the fundamentals of business. And business is so simple. Business is very simple. Profits minus very simplistic terms now. Sorry. So this is the price, my selling price minus costs, or whether expense or cost of goods sold, all this complication. Let's make it simple. This is my selling price. This is the expense, cost to serve. This is the profit. That's what a business is anywhere in the world. So the moment for you to be in business, your selling price must be above your expense. Because if that happens, then you have a profit. If you don't have that in whatever you're trying to do, then there's a problem. So, and it doesn't matter whether it's a service you're delivering or it's a product you're selling. The question is, will you do it profitably? And the beauty of business is that if I do it one time, how many more times can I repeat it? I've sold to one person. Can I sell to two? Can I sell to three? Can I sell to 100? Can I sell to 1,000? Can I sell to 1,000,000? Repeated sales. Is it repeatable or is it a fluke? Right? So I think these are the fundamental things. So if you have the fundamentals intact such that, and that's why I love Igbo men. Igbo men are on the money. If I know that this naira and kobo, my price is higher than my expense and there will be profit, then people will give you money now. So if you borrow money, even if you borrow money at, let's say, 2% per month, the question is the sale you're doing in that month, will you generate return that exceeds 2%? Those are the fundamentals of business, to be very honest, right? So I think that's just basically, so funding is very important. But then there are different ways to access funding. Traditionally, there's your family and friends, people who believe in you, who know your reputation. Some of them might come in as equity holders. Some will just give you debt, interest-free debt. Some people will actually give you loans, based on interest. That's one of the places, to be honest, to start from. And the way I look at it is this. Do a business, and this is now I'm talking about business principles. Do a business that can finance itself over the long term. And if I'm not just long term is far, I'm sorry. Do a business that can finance itself as early as possible. But, and I like using the example, maybe because I'm an FMCG girl, right? FMCG is now on Kobo. There's no Turanchi, no plenty English. So the question is, this product I'm selling, if I take it to the market, will they buy it? This product is 10 naira. It costs me 8 naira total cost, because that's another part of total cost. So let's not go into the details of that. Because some people sometimes, this thing is 10 naira, but they think that the cost is 8 naira because they bought it at 8 naira. But what are the other costs you have to incur to sell? Sometimes a lot of things, those things might be 4 naira. So you are thinking that 10 naira and then 8 naira. No, you're actually at a loss minus 2. So let's leave that. So let's just talking about economics, just basic economics is this thing profitable? If it is, that business will pay itself and pay itself quickly. Something happened recently, just 2 days ago. I was at some place and a founder was talking about how she wanted to raise funding. And then she has spoken to maybe 1 or 2 investors and they were giving attitude, them in quotes now, like, we're just, and she just said, well, she just left them and went to face her business. And that, they had become profitable before they even raised. And this is where businesses need to go back to. We need to all go back to the fundamentals. I know the whole startup environment with the whole, don't worry, you can lead with loss making and then eventually you become profitable. That thing is not a bad thing, to be fair, if you know how to play that game and play the long game. But you see, we cannot have replete businesses that are not profitable. We will crash an ecosystem, right? So we need to have profitable businesses. We need to have businesses that by themselves can drive profit, because that's how you build sustainable and enduring businesses. So if your business can pay itself, all you just need to do is the initial capital to start. Once you sell a few units, money will start to come in that hopefully can finance itself. But of course, when you now want to do things at a larger scale, you need to raise financing to scale. I don't know if that answered the question, but that's how I think in a robust way people can look at funding.
For me, it does, and it does a lot, right? And you've even touched on some points that I wasn't expecting you to touch on, but thank you for touching on them, right? The place of credibility, the place of reputation, right? Like you said, reputation, credibility is currency, is capital, right? And if people trust you and people believe in you, and you've proven to them over time, maybe with smaller things, right, that you're trustworthy, credible, and you have grit. Anything you put your heart to, you get it done, right? The day you walk up to them to say that I need 10,000 or I need 20,000, and they're a bit more willing to, to stick it out on you, right? Not just because you're family and friend, that gives you access, but for them to even be willing to, it means that I've seen you do stuff, right? So I'm willing to take this risk on you. It may work, it may not work, but I know that you're not going to get this money and then you start ordering for what's that thing that they say they drink these days? Oble. And you start doing which is the issue today at times when you look at that funding ecosystem, right? Because some people get some funding rather than the good chunk of the money to good, maybe everything, if I may say, go into the business to fund that expansion or that scaling and all of that. No, the guys start living large, right? They start, living large. You rent a house somewhere you couldn't have ordinarily afforded. And then do you get what I mean? And that will lead to problems eventually. So you've touched on a very important point. I like the fact that, the example you cited about Elon Musk being able to just write a note, a very simple note to some guys, and without so much hassle, right? These doors open, right? On the strength of his credibility is like leading at the speed of trust, right? If I can go back to remember that book by, the Colberts, right? Leading at the speed of trust. So that's really, really very helpful. Thanks a lot for sharing that. Now, I know you've said a lot about how you transit. No, you've not really gone into the details of how you transition from paid employment. We've touched on it, right? But some people will consider you leaving to go and start that, a bit risky.
Yeah, it was actually risky.
Right, a bit risky.
Wasn't a bit risky. It was very risky.
No, maybe at some point you've thought through that. Okay, you know what? If push comes to shove, right? I speak very well. I have some experience. I still have my certificate. I've gone to LBS. Okay, that's enough backup plan. If things don't work, I'll dust my pally again, and then we'll enter market. I don't know what the thought processes are, right? Well, then when you're making that decision, but it would be good to know. For instance, when you started out on driver, was what you were earning higher up to what you were earning when you were back in PNG, or you had to take some pay cuts, right? That transition, right? How did you navigate it? Did you need some kind of emotional support from your parents, your friends, and how did you, from having like maybe a company car or having some privileges and benefits and compensation, as we call them, to you now, running things like probably on the street with your jeans and t-shirt, looking for, throwing proposals all over the place. How did you manage all of that psychologically? I know it sounds funny, right? But you know what?
No, it's not funny. It's so apt, Kunle. It's so apt.
So tell us about your experience. That curve. How did you navigate it? How did you manage it? And tell us a story.
That's why I said it's a lot of risk. It's not a bit of risk. It's a lot of risk. But you see, you have to learn to bet on yourself. I mean, nobody else will bet on you. Yeah, nobody else will bet on you. When you believe that there's an opportunity here, and that's how entrepreneurs are birthed. Entrepreneurs were coconut heads. Founders are coconut heads, and in fact, I have this friend, I actually have this friend, and I mean, he's been a founder for a long time, and man, I've not seen that guy is like a cat with nine lives, like for real. When you think that the thing is going like this, it will just come up again, and that cycle just continues, and that's really how founders can be sometimes. So for me, it was a lot of risk, quitting. And quitting, I think, I mean, I've never said this in public actually, but I think what made it even more, risky, and interesting in my own case was that at the time I was doing well. In fact, I was supposed to go on expert assignment, as a matter of fact, and I mean, look, if I had stayed, I know the kind of life I believe in, I mean, I'm not suffering, of course. I'm doing well, but hey, sometimes you look at this journey and you're like, who even sent me this? Who sent me, like, but, and I'm going to answer your question. I'm just trying to speak from my heart, to be honest. I think it's the thing about being a founder is the passion and the vision, and that desire to impact the earth, and it's not money. To be honest, I kid you not. To be Kunle, like if I talk about salary, I'm sorry, and I tell them my driver, people still don't pay me what I could be earning or what I was even. Yeah, you don't pay me what I could even be earning. It's far from what I could be earning, to be honest. But that money is not my priority. And in fact, I think particularly over the next 5 years, there's certain things we're going to be doing as a company that are very ambitious, that are very audacious. And I kid you not, those things are centered around how do we step change things. There are things we've complained about in the logistics industry for years, even before I was born, and they're still there. The question is, how do we step change some of these things? How can we bring in innovation, fix some of the market gaps, and let companies feel what it means to run world-class, best-in-class logistics? To be honest, that is my passion today. And that is what keeps me going, right? So, yes, it was a huge risk, leaving at the time. I mean, I was not fired, In fact, there were bigger opportunities that were laid up for me, And in fact, what I find interesting when I was going to leave, and I mean, it was humbling as well, is how sometimes the company has your life planned out for you. Like the company had amazing plans. Like even me, I'm like, okay, you people have all this. Like, they had really amazing plans, and I'm grateful to them for it, even though I couldn't then follow through. So, it's the passion, it's that vision, it's that burning desire. The truth is, if I didn't leave, then I would still have left sometime. If I was still then, I would still have left tomorrow. There was just always going to be that, let's go out. And the thing also is the uncertainty. Look, that's why I said, trust me, it was a huge risk. The uncertainty, because you don't even know, right? What if you fail? And I think, I tell you this. And like I said, I usually, you wouldn't find stuff about me in public. I'm not a public person about what I do. I'm very private about my business, about what we do, and I think it comes from my consulting background and all of that, confidentiality and all of that, but I'm just trying to speak from my heart. You never can tell who hopefully it blesses. Look, when I was leaving, I remember a few people walked up to me and they said, look, and these are people who have worked longer than I have. And they said, see this move you're making, eh? They are moves, and let me use an individual. Like this is a move I would want to make in my life, but there's just there's too much responsibilities. Like I salute this your courage, like I wish I could, but my responsibilities there's just so much at stake, So a lot of times people want to do it, but trust me, there's too much at stake for you to try. So I think for me at the time, I just felt, look, and sometimes as another way I look at life, what's the worst that could happen? And I asked myself what the worst could be. And I knew what the worst could be. The worst could be that, okay, we try to do stuff, it doesn't work and everything packs up. And then, if you can get another job, or something like that, So, I mean, I just told myself, well, that's the worst. And I said to myself, okay, give myself 3 years, okay, fine, at least 3 years. If it doesn't, then you can get another thing to do and, stuff like that. I mean, well, I've been there 5 years now. It's still doing it, still going, So, I think, I'm not. And not because there's so much work to do in the logistics industry. There's so much work to do in the logistics industry. Look, I want to do work. And that's why I say driver is at the zero. as far as Nigeria logistics is concerned, or whatever it is we can do on the continent, we want to do logistics at even a much better scale and depth. We want to make shift. There is a seismic shift. We want to make some shifts in the market over the next 5 years, and that's what excites me and keeps me awake at night. So yes, it was tough to go, because yes, you have everything working for you. You have, like you said, my life was sweet too. you know, yes, now, this, and the thing about the difference is that you're not responsible for people. Now I'm responsible for over 100 human beings, and but then you're not responsible for anybody. I mean, whatever you do is just you, yourself, and your family. But there's also, you and I were talking during the break about legacy, and I think that's very key for me. Look, we're not going to be in the world forever. I mean, maybe you live 100 years, or even if you live 120, it's not forever. And I just believe that everybody came here to be able to contribute something to the universe. And if all of us want to play it safe, we wouldn't have the world that we have today. So some people, and for Nigeria, for example, we need a lot more entrepreneurs to emerge.
Hey, thanks a lot for taking the time to watch the podcast. We are super thankful for you taking that time and investing the time to learn. We hope that you find the story inspiring, and beyond that, that you've been able to articulate one or two things that you want to do differently in your own entrepreneurial journey. May I encourage you to please like, subscribe, comment, and please share the word within your own circle of influence, especially within those that you think are on the same entrepreneurial journey with you. May I also encourage you to please, beyond subscribing to our YouTube channel, follow us on our other social media platforms. That means a lot to us, and we can see that that helps us to track that we're making some progress and so making some impact. Thanks a lot once again for taking the time to watch, and we'll see you on the next episode.